call the meeting to order. It's nice to see so many faces here with us in person tonight, and for the people who are joining us online. We are short a few board members tonight for health reasons, but we do have a quorum, and we're expecting Brendan to come in any moment now. So I think we'll just get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business after that is approval of the meeting minutes from January 18th of this year. I'll entertain a motion.
Ilda, so moved.
Motion made by Ilda. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second from Alicia. Thank you. Oh, now it's working. Any discussion or comments from the board members? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate by raising your hand. And an abstention from you, Paula, I know, because you weren't with us that night. No, Ilda was there online.
It says she was absent, so maybe we have to correct that.
She joined the meeting online on the 18th, correct? Yes. Thank you for catching that, Mary. I didn't look closely enough. Okay, next thing is public comment. Is there anybody who's signed up to speak under public comment? No, not in person or online. Anybody want to speak during public comment? Who's here? Okay, so we'll move on. Board chairs report. I don't have anything new or momentous to report this evening. Just to say that we're diligently working on our budget, and we will be talking about that at our next board meeting on the 15th, correct? Oh yeah, it's a special meeting on the 22nd. Thank you. I see Rita squirming in her seat over there. No, I know we're going to be talking about it before the end of the month. We have 2 sessions to talk about the budget before we hand it over to the town by the 15th of March. And that's it for now, and I'll turn it over to the superintendent. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We're going to start off with some good news tonight. The first part of my report is a recognition of C.H. Barrow STEM Academy, and we have some members of the STEM team in the back of the auditorium. They have garnered another national recognition. This year they're being recognized as the STEM School of Excellence from the International Technology and Engineering Educators Association. That's a mouthful. They are going to be recognized at the conference on April 13th in Minneapolis. So a small team will go and receive the award, attend a reception for STEM schools, and take part in some professional development while they're there. So it's exciting. Oh, Mr. O'Neill is here. So what I'd like to do is have the Barrows team come up. We'd like to present them with a plaque for their recognition and take a photo. Board members want to join in the photo?
Sure. Do you want us to just go up there, or where do you want us to
Holly,
go?
where do you want them to be?
Okay, great. Anybody who wants to join us for the photo? Come on up.
Excellent. So the application that we filled out for this really featured our inquiry sort-of-based model and our integrated curriculum that we kind of really pride ourselves, and it separated us from a lot of the other schools that applied in the process. Also, some of the things that we're doing over the past couple of years where we have the older kids working with the younger kids and really sort of being that mentor model that we can do in a K-8 school. It's one of those unique opportunities that we have. So we're really proud of the ability to do that in our building and look to incorporate that more. But the honor really reflects that kind of piece that we do. So.
Congratulations.
Okay, next is just an update, Windham Middle School. I saw we have at least one Windham Middle School. I thought there were two, but okay. Obviously, they're still focused on their continuous improvement efforts. We've had some unexpected obstacles, some resignations we weren't planning on, and we did make a determination not to go forth with a change to their master schedule until the start of next year. The leadership team at this point is working closely with Grace Sanchez, our Director of Human Resources, to fill the gaps in their staffing structure. So that's sort of big picture overview of what's happening at the middle school. And tomorrow, they have an attendance celebration where they are celebrating, I think it's more than 100 students. I don't know the exact number, for 1 to 2 days absences only from the beginning of the school year to now, which is impressive, particularly with all the illness that's going around. So they have, they continue to show progress on their chronic absenteeism data. And when looking at last year's data for chronic absenteeism, they have significantly reduced that number. The next Windham Middle School improvement meeting, which is available in person or virtually, is February 14th. So if you want to spend your Valentine's Day talking about middle school improvement, you are all board members are invited to attend.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Yep, Mary?
Yeah, I just want to say I had hoped to hear some good news. You know, we heard it about Barrows, and it is a shame for the middle school, and we have been working and focusing on it. You know, I just want to mention that I was surprised about the potential of changing a master schedule mid-year, and I have conveyed that. Also because, you know, the principal was appointed in, you know, July 1st, and really the schedule, I would think, should have been ready for the beginning of the year. You know, I do think that we're talking about children's education and, you know, this urgent need really to move the educational efforts at the middle school. So I just want to register that, you know, we need a sense of urgency, really, regarding this. What also, is there any update about the Mystic Science focus that they were having, that some students were going to have? I mean, I don't just want to hear about attendance with the middle school. I want them to have excellent opportunities like Charles Barrows STEM has. So, you know, I think we need a bit more urgency here.
Thank you. I think there might be a response to some of that. Dr. Ware?
All right, good evening. So Dr. Vellucci, and speaking to the Mystic partnership that we have, so it is ongoing, it's still going. So I know they actually met today with the educators from Mystic Aquarium. I've attended the field trip twice. So the 8th grade team, both teams A and B, as well as compañeros, 7th and 8th graders, have been in attendance. So they actually come into the middle school to actually like front load the curriculum that they're gonna go over, and then they go to Mystic. So they have 3 times where they go to Mystic. They have one more coming up, I believe that's in April. Is that right, Ms. Haddad? So there's another time where they're going in April. They just went a couple of weeks ago. And so that is something that's still ongoing and that our 8th graders and 7th and 8th graders in dual language are taking advantage of. So we're in talks to expand that for the coming year. So if you have any questions, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Ware.
All right.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Attendance and discipline.
So I did provide for the board the biweekly check-in on our chronic absenteeism and discipline as was requested. I don't know if there's any specific questions or comments.
Mary?
Right, just to, once again, that we really need to have a kind of standardization for the discipline because it's very hard to read these numbers of incidents, some of which are clearly very low level and others are very serious. So it needs to be broken out and it needs to be clear and standard across all schools.
So I can definitely speak to that, and it is something that we've been speaking about with the leadership team. Every school runs its own kingdom, so to speak, and you are correct that we are starting to standardize our practices. Our elementary schools all use the same referral forms. Our secondary schools, they use the same referral forms. We are all reporting on the same reporting system to the state. That's where this data comes from. And we're working as a district leadership team. We have a discipline committee in place, and we're trying to establish some standard approaches to discipline and a standard understanding of discipline. There are differences in the way they gather data. Some of them are nuanced just by the fact that they're in a different building. Some buildings, for example, don't necessarily report out the behavior incidents that are managed by teachers in classrooms. Some report everything. So we're working on that. For the board's purposes, I can try to break down the data for you further, but this is how it's reported to the state, so we're just giving you a copy of the state data. We are working on it. I don't know how to give you an analogy, but it would require us to change some habits, and you know how difficult it can be to change habits. But we're working on it. My leadership team knows it's an issue, and it's one that, you know, our students deserve to have the same response regardless of what building they're in, so it's on our radar for sure.
I just want to, I'm not trying to pile on, but we just did discuss it at the last board meeting, and there is some concern on my part and some board members' part, as Mary indicated, about our ability to understand what's going on in the schools based on the data not being reported the same way in the different school buildings. And if there's a difference between like the elementary level versus the middle and secondary level, then explain that to us so that we understand. I do think there needs to be more work, and I understand exactly what you're saying about habits, but this is about us understanding what's going on, and if some habits need to be changed so that the board can understand better what's going on in the schools around discipline, that's important. On a different note, I've been reading about examples of districts that have been doing some things, and they've had extra resources to do those things around attendance. And I was happy to hear from my discussion with you, Dr. Youngberg, that we are employing some of those same things here in Windham with home visits and developing direct relationships with families. And I want to say that I'm very pleased and happy and want to acknowledge the work that's going on the part of people who are doing outreach on behalf of the district with families trying to tackle these issues of chronic absenteeism among some students. Because what they're finding in these other towns where they've had significant results is that those relationships are what are making the difference in changing those patterns. So I want to give kudos to the district for trying to do that without the extra resources that some of the districts have had.
We actually now do have some of those resources. I think the LEAP grant we're referring to that is focused on, that's one of the strategies covered by that grant. So we are definitely working on that.
Anybody have anything else?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I'm looking at the, can you hear me? I'm looking at the incidents by actions and the number of incidents. Hello. I'm looking at the number of incidents, and you know, it goes way up, Barrows and the middle school, but when you go into, when you break it down into the incident of actions, there's so many more kids at the middle school, the Windham Middle, that are being suspended, either in school or out of school. So how severe are these, and can we have more information?
Yeah,
Because
I think that
like
that's
with Barrows, it's 369. I'm not taking away from your fame here tonight, I'm just saying, because these are the numbers, they don't lie. But what are the incidences? There's 369, but their in school and out of school suspension is way low. So what's happening with all the other kids?
So I'm going to have to get you more data on it. I can't, I wouldn't be able to answer that question right now, but I'm willing to dig in the data to figure out how I can make the board, support the board in understanding and how we can get our schools to be more standardized in their approach. We're working on it. I'll see if I can speed it along.
Especially with the middle school, because that's always been our problem school for some reason.
So the middle school does have higher in-school and out-of-school suspension data, but compared to last year, they're in better shape. So there's less this year.
That's
So we're
great.
happy about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll hear more on that as we move forward through the year. So we're on to the next item. Thank you.
So last night, we had our very first parent advisory group meeting on the second floor of the new central office, and Dr. Ware and Mr. Camacho were with me, along with 6, 7 different families showed up. We're going to be working on trying to extend that number. We offered a virtual option and did have someone who attended virtually. Other folks were in person. We went through a series of things that might be of interest to them and got to listen to some feedback from them, things that they'd like to see in the district. We did decide after spending about an hour and a half with them that it really would be helpful for us to have representation from every school. So if we could just have one family from each of our schools in the district, we feel like that will definitely help the discussions move things forward. They also have an interest in making sure that things are sort of equitable around the district and that the same activities, the same experiences are available to their kids regardless of what building they're in. So I'll be sharing more of that information as we go along. We do have dates set up in the future, and I know Ilda texted yesterday afternoon and asked if she could join, and I said I hadn't opened it up to the board, but I think that's probably a good idea, and that moving forward I would say that board members could attend if they wanted to. So the dates are there. The group last night chose 5:30 as a start time for the meeting, so we'll have a meeting over the next few months together if you want to join us, either virtually or in person.
Lynn?
Yes, Paula.
Question, Dr. Youngberg, is this a committee, like a kind of the same people will be attending all the time? Or is this something that we can tell parents you might want to log on and?
So we actually had that come up last night because they also, the group that was there last night wants to see more people come out. And so they suggested maybe an all-call reminder right before the meeting, welcoming anyone. I don't know. I get worried about that. I don't know where to put everyone if too many show up, but I don't know if that will happen. So yeah, I think this core set of people have committed to keep coming, but we hope to keep adding people along. So if you do have someone that wants to be heard and be part of a discussion, absolutely invite them.
Thank you. Was there something that you were trying to say, Ilda?
She's whispering to me about my microphone.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you were having a side meeting over there. It's okay.
No, it's all good.
No. So district survey. I know we have some people with us today.
We do have some people. So as you know, we had a series of things go on.
Want to use mine?
Sure.
Oh, no,
Oh, now
it's
it came back on. It was flashing for a minute. So I do have the district survey committee. We've been trying as a district to really make things a lot more democratic and a lot more collaborative. So I did ask for volunteers to be a part of this committee from all of our bargaining units, or many of our bargaining units, and non-affiliated folks. I really want there to be a commitment to improving the district and working hard together to get that, to make those improvements happen. So we brought together a team. We're going to present to you some overall summary data. Each board member has all of the questions from the the staff and the family survey, so that you have all the data available to you. But we did summarize it for you so you can see the things that we found to be strengths, actually the committee found to be strengths, and things that the committee found to be areas that we need to focus on, and create action plans to improve upon. So we're actually going to let them come up. I'm going to walk through the first few slides just to make sure everyone's clear on the process, and then we're going to hand it over to the team. Holly, you're advancing slides, right? Oh. Yeah, I didn't even know that. Okay, so just a review of the process. We had draft questions that we provided to the Personnel Committee back in September. We then ran those draft questions by multiple bargaining units in October. We then provided them back to the board for any final feedback. We made adjustments, so we sort of had a collaborative response to what those questions look like and how we were putting them out for the community and all of our members. The final survey went live on November 14th. The student link was shared with building principals on November 15th. We did survey students in grades 5 through 12. The deadline, which was supposed to be 2 weeks after we opened the survey, was actually pushed back to December 2nd. Communications were sent out to staff and families on the dates listed there, the 18th, the 23rd, the 29th, and again, when we extended the deadline. We also had a pop-up message on our website, so anyone who visited was encouraged to take the survey. We would then form the survey committee, and many of them are here tonight, and there may even be some who are joining us virtually, because we did give them that option. The survey results were then downloaded. Holly took over all that, and Holly, I wanted to shout out and celebrate you for all the work you did. A lot of work, and the committee can speak to that, because the enormous amounts of data that they went through to help us present tonight, there's a lot of information that's in your folder. The general survey information was shared initially with the Personnel Committee, and then again, we gave you an update in December. And then the last slide here is just the participation rates, and I've shared with the board and with my leadership team that I'm not happy with the participation rates. We wanted them to be much higher. Our goals were much higher. We didn't achieve them. But we still think that there's information in the survey that is helpful to us and that we can use to improve upon. So that's where we are. I want to invite my committee members. And by the way, there's a celebratory slide here with all their names, because we really did appreciate the work that they've done. So thank you to everyone. And my name's on the slide, but honestly and truly, the work was the committee. I was passing in and out and listening carefully, but they were doing the work, the heavy lifting. And then the next slide is just an example or a documentation of the hours that they spent actually compiling the data, and they're here tonight to present it to you. So do I have my staff volunteer, or the volunteer who compiled and will present the staff data? You want to just introduce yourself to the board, and then?
Sure. My name is Cammie Nyland-Poirier. I'm a teacher here in Windham. And I had the honor to be representing the Windham Federation of Teachers as its president. And we were invited to have 3 members from our bargaining unit. So I made sure that we had all the grades covered. We had someone from the high school, someone from the middle school level, and I represented pre-K through 5. And we were happy to be part of it from the beginning. You know, we were asked for our input with feedback on the draft questions, and then, looking at the results. So we were really happy to be part of that. So the staff survey results, we first looked at strengths across the district, and it was very clear that adults build relationships with students. 94, almost 95% agreed or strongly agreed with that. That number represents the respondents that said they somewhat or they strongly agreed. And then clear expectations for staff. We know what's expected of us. That's a good thing. Also, as a strength, people felt comfortable going to at least one administrator, 87% agreed with that. There was someone in their building that they could go to if they had a question, concern, maybe a celebration. And clear vision from the superintendent. That was clear in all the district-wide data that they felt that our superintendent has a clear vision. Also strengths, diversity is valued, and collegiality. Everyone across all the buildings felt that they worked well with their colleagues, and that was felt strongly throughout the district. And then, of course, there are some places for growth. So a few of the things that came up, principals' visions, that might be a place where we can grow. Staff morale, there's definitely a place for growth there. Professional development, Eureka Math, that's the pre-K through 8 program that we're using that is very new to us. SEL, social emotional learning, and then DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are some areas that staff in their comments said that they really would like some more PD on. And staff shortages were causing a lot of stress across the buildings. You have to keep in mind when the survey closed, it was really end of November, and so we were still suffering from, quite a few absences. So we think hopefully this would change as the school year goes on. The shared principal at Windham Middle and North Windham School, that was an area that people had concerns with. And then we're hoping for additional supports for our visiting teachers. And then some real SEL, social emotional well-being support for all. And then we were able to look at some of the concerns and think about some contributing factors. And that came out largely in the comments that people were able to make. And so under the staff morale, there were several contributing factors, as you can see. Staff shortages, better communication in schools, additional supports such as SEL and DEI already mentioned, safety, student behavior with expectations and follow-through, and additional PD. Safety is a concern in some places, mostly related to student behavior. You'll see student behavior is a contributing factor in several of these lines. Student behavior has its own line from just procedures on how things are handled, maybe some unclear behavior expectations, not followed by all, and having consistent follow-through. And some additional supports, again, the SEL, social emotional learning, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And again, the student safety and behavior came up with expectations and follow-through, additional PD again, and additional training. And then the question, what should we do with the ESSER funds? Staffing, better pay for staff, enriching activities for students, technology, and some real targeted PD, phonics, Eureka Math, and again, the SEL and DEI. And as you can see on this slide, better pay for all staff frequently came up in the comments, but we realized that that's not sustainable after the ESSER funds end. So those were just some of the recurring suggestions for the ESSER funds from staff.
Thank you, Kami.
And I'm done.
I don't know if there's any questions, comments?
Thank you. I'm, despite what I thought was a not strong enough showing, but I do think that there were some issues about the rollout and whether there was anonymity. However, I do feel enlightened from hearing your presentation here. And I think that, the the issue of a shared principal is something that has been a concern to me. Also, the safety. It comes back to the previous discussion, and I have to say, it is something that does keep me up, not just in this district because of the country we live in and the situations, but hearing things and suspensions and students making a threat potentially or students hearing threats. These are very alarming, and I absolutely think that I would like to have the board and all the principals at least have some kind of meeting, and we need to get this discipline data. You see, we cannot understand the problems and how to address them if one school is recording things in a certain way. So, you know, we do talk about data. Data has to be transparent and standardized so that we can all understand it. And I don't want to jump into some of the other responses, but I am concerned about a lot of unhappiness that is registered even by the students.
I think what the results from the survey do is give the board some guidelines for areas that we need to focus more on in our role as board members, and that we should endeavor to work with the superintendent and the staff to figure out what's the best way for the board to have understanding and play a constructive role without getting involved in the day-to-day workings of the district. And also, it will help us. I mean, I'm going to certainly keep things in mind when we have our budget discussions too, because how we deploy resources is important.
So I want to comment on safety because I think it keeps me up at night. I think it keeps a lot of the people up in the room up at night. We are, like most districts across the state and country, seeing more significant behaviors. We're seeing our students with more needs. I don't think that there's anyone in the room who would argue with that. The fact that the schools are not standardizing the way they report out the discipline data does not impact the way we intervene for students. I want to make that clear. We have to figure out a way to standardize the data reporting, but we are intervening in every school to support those kids. So that does not stop the schools from doing their job. It doesn't mean that we don't, like most schools and school districts, have places to grow and improve. This survey obviously brings to light areas that we know we need to focus on. All of those things, by the way, we're already focused on. It's not like it's new information to us. So I just want to make sure we are clear that not standardizing the reporting system does not impact their ability to actually intervene and support students. So I wanted to just make that clear.
Thank you. Are we going to hear
We
some
are.
more from other
I
parts
have my
of the
family
survey?
survey results.
Good evening. Grace Sanchez, Director of Human Services, and I have,
Elisa Dorf, Administrative Assistant to Director of Facilities.
yes, and there was a few of us.
There's a few of us, yes.
You got to speak closer to the microphone if you're going to speak. We couldn't hear what you said.
Hi, Elisa Dorf, and I am the Administrative Assistant to Director of Facilities.
And Melody Wiley was also a part of our committee, and she should be online also. Okay, wonderful. So what we took a look at was the family survey results and some district-wide strengths that we were able to conclude from the research is teachers are compassionate, about 86.9% feel heard and their input is valued. Families feel comfortable talking with their children or children's teacher, 90.9%, which we thought was wonderful. And the survey respondents either strongly agreed or somewhat agreed. Other strengths were families feel welcome, that they are being heard, and that they are valued, 87.9%. And then 86.4% of the families are happy with the district-wide communication. Families know who to contact when and if they have a concern, and that was 88.4%. And then district-wide areas of growth, added security at all schools, metal detectors, classroom behavior, aggressions, and possible bullying. And bullying, you know, it's really unknown if it's really bullying as defined by the law or if that's just the term that they used. But we did want to put it up there because that's the way that it was stated. Student safety, particularly student to student. Discipline needs to be more consistent and more communication from individual schools. And then some of the examples of what the families are requesting from us is coffee hours with the principals and the superintendent, uniform assistance such as vouchers and or district-wide bulk purchases for better deals for families, more family and school-based activities, book fairs, parent university, career and college night for the middle school and the high schools. And then uniforms. So in favor of uniforms, there was either strongly agree or somewhat agree. Families were at 63.5%, staff 55.1%, and students 30.8%. And then not in favor of uniforms, where either they strongly disagreed or somewhat disagreed. Families 24.9%, staff were reported at 23.5%, and students at 44.5%.
Thank you both. Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, I have my student survey results.
I'm Liz Baumgartner, the Director of Elementary Ed, and I had the pleasure of doing, with our team here, part of the student survey results.
Ellie Garvey with WFEP.
Kathy Brillen, art teacher at Windham Middle School.
Okay, so our district-wide strengths for student survey results were students feel the adults make sure that their school is safe and everyone follows the rules, 74%. And students feel that teachers have high expectations of them, which is 79%. More strengths where students feel that teachers take time to make sure they understand lesson materials, and students feel their schools are clean and well maintained. Other district-wide strengths, overall students feel that education is important, and the majority of students are involved in extracurricular activities or clubs, or the majority of them, and students would like more club offerings at the elementary school level. So district-wide areas for growth for our student surveys showed that although the majority of students, which is almost 70%, have a trusted adult to go to, we really felt that every child should have at least one trusted adult to go to. And even though the majority of students feel that they were being treated fairly, many did not feel they were being treated fairly, about 26%, or did not respond to the question, which was 19%, neither agreed nor disagreed. And so that was an area, where the area of where people didn't respond, when it was a large amount of, or percentage, it really, to analyze those questions was a bit more difficult because we didn't know why the person didn't respond. So some of the requests in our students, really, it was wonderful to read all of the comments, and they really were honest about their reflections on what they would like or have, change in. Food, and that really varied. Just to explain that a little bit, it all depended on the grade level. So sometimes it was, oh, we'd like more choices of food, or at the high school and middle school level, they wanted high school size food versus what element. So that's how, as comments were, they were getting the same amount of serving as like an elementary first grader, and they were a high school student, for example. Everyone wants additional recess time, so of course that was a comment from them. No required uniforms, but this was also dependent on schools and grade levels, middle school versus elementary, in particular because only 5th grade responded from the elementary side, so it depended on grade level. Dress down days or uniform modifications, overwhelmingly the middle school mentioned hoodies and warm clothes over and over in their comments, so that's why that was noted. Bathroom upgrades and personal hygiene products availability, that was something that was expressed, and bathroom upgrades was, we'd like a mirror in the bathroom. It was things like that. Extracurricular activities or clubs. Elementary, again, really wanted to, they wanted more clubs or variations versus the middle and high school, which tends to have those availabilities. And then overall respect. Some of the comments were around student to student, or teacher to student, or student to teacher, vice versa. And sometimes they mention the words aggression or possible bullying, and that was noted. It was unknown if this is bullying as defined by the law. Sometimes it's used that way, and so that's why the asterisk is there. And then security was mentioned by the high school students. Any questions?
Ilda?
What specific did they mention about the Windham High School security?
It was just comments, whether it was general comments about safety. All of the comments, if a student or a respondent mentioned a particular thing over and over, that's why it had gone on the list. The specifics, there were so many. There were 435 kids, I think that answered, right? Is that correct? So it was just a comment that came up over and over. Specifics, you'd have to go back into the actual surveys and look at the actual comments from the high school side. You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Well, I always have something to say, so I'm going to just say that I appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and I appreciate for the people who are watching, or if this gets reported in the local media, I want to thank the families and the students and the staff who did participate, and hopefully as we move forward we'll get better participation. I think one thing that will help drive participation is how we as a board and the administration react to the feedback that we've gotten. So I don't have an answer tonight, but I'd like us to figure out as a board how we can begin to unpack some of this information and use it to help us focus our work moving forward. And I don't know whether anybody else on the board has any other thoughts on that. Paula, you look like you're about to say something.
No, I don't know if this is along the same lines, but we hear that word bullying coming up so frequently, and as you've mentioned, there's a law definition versus we don't know what definition other people use, and I wonder if we can get some of that clarification from the families who are using those words. If I hear any criticism out there, it usually uses the word bullying, and so whether it's the lawful definition or not, it's obviously something that affects families and kids. And so to have just an understanding of what people are referring to when they use the word, I think might help us also in developing solutions.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the board wants to continue to have conversations about how we respond to the data, or you want me to move ahead and start the process?
Well, I don't want to stop the administration from moving ahead and starting the process to respond to things. But what I'm suggesting is that I think board members might like to unpack certain pieces of this information in more detail at subsequent meetings, that we probably can't talk about everything all in one meeting, but if I could get a sense from board members today or after this meeting about things that you'd like us to focus on, we can unpack those things more in the discussion section or a working meeting. Does that make sense to the board? Yeah. Okay, does that make sense to you?
It does, and I can start reporting out on the things that we're already doing in response.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're on to committee reports. We sort of did jump ahead and talk about the survey stuff that we had on discussion, but we can, if somebody has something else when we get to that, we can. I'm sorry. So school planning and design. Brendan, you're on.
Thank you. We met back on January 19th. We had some discussion about the possible construction of a new school and what the next steps are. There was a meeting with the town where we talked about possible locations to consider in addition to the Sweeney site, as well as starting to put together the ed specs. So we were going to go to the state and get a model example of ed specs for a construction project to start putting those together. And then we moved into capital improvements for next year. There was a number of things we discussed that, for the most part, need to take place, whether or not there's any major construction going on with the elementary schools, either stuff at the middle school or Barrows or district-wide, or stuff at the elementary schools that even if a building is shut down or demolished, we'd have to do before that takes place. And we'll have further discussion of that at the next Finance and Audit Committee. And that was our meeting. Any questions?
Any questions for Brendan? I want to thank the staff for putting together the capital projects list, and it enabled us to have a pretty good discussion of, how to prioritize things going into the next year's budget. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Finance and audit was actually canceled.
Oh, yes. Finance and audit was supposed to happen this evening before this meeting, but it's been rescheduled for next Tuesday, the 7th, I think it is? Yeah, the 7th. So that committee will meet then, and so we'll hear a report at our next board meeting. So we have, we're moving on to discussion items, and we have a candidate to take action on this evening. Erin Coleman is Director of Pupil Services, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. Youngberg, to get us started.
Thank you very much. I'm going to read his bio so everyone can know who he is and what he brings to our team before we invite him up. Mr. Aaron Coleman is being recommended for appointment to the position of Director of Pupil Services. With board appointment, Mr. Coleman will be joining us from Killingly Public Schools, where he serves as their Assistant Director of Pupil Services. In this role, he is responsible for evaluation and a caseload of approximately 20 certified staff with oversight of grades 5 through 12, both in and out of district placements. He brings with him a wealth of knowledge from his prior roles as the Director of Special Education and Elementary Principal at West Sedona School in Sedona, Arizona, where he oversaw all special education and student services for the district, performed site administrative facilitation of grants, collaborated with site staff and the police SRO to maintain a safe campus. The community he was from or worked in in Arizona is actually very similar to Willimantic, so we know he's a good fit. We got that sense very early on in our committee interviews. He also has previous experience in building administration. He's a strategic planner who's deeply interested in ensuring equitable access and results. He believes in collaborative leadership and will foster positive behavior and teamwork. Mr. Coleman received his Bachelor's of Arts from the University of Arizona and his Master's of Education in Human Relations in 2009, and then in Educational Leadership in 2015. He makes his home in Canterbury and will be a welcome addition to our district. For these reasons, I recommend the board appoints Mr. Aaron Coleman as the Director of Pupil Services effective February 6th.
Thank you. Well, we're not taking action quite yet. We will under action items, but this is a chance for us to Aaron Coleman, why don't you come on up and come up to the mic so we can see you, and people who are watching online can see you. And there might be something you'd like to share with us or something you'd like to say, and then board members, I'll call on you if there are any questions or comments that you have.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Youngberg. I didn't prepare anything. I did not know this was happening in this way. And I would have written the bio a little better. But I appreciate you. I'm just very excited to be here. I was in Tucson prior to Sedona. I was in Sedona the past 3 years, and just very excited to be here on the East Coast, Canterbury, Connecticut. We moved over here. My wife is from this area, and just blown away and humbled to be here and learning so much about the district. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I embarrassingly didn't prepare anything.
Don't be embarrassed at
Okay.
all. It's okay.
Okay.
This was a chance for us to meet you, and we
Certainly.
do have to take action as a board, so that's why I thought I'd give you a chance to come up and say anything you wanted to say. And does anybody have any comments or questions? I know Katina and I were on the interview committee along with staff and administration, and we both, I'll speak for Katina, who couldn't be here tonight, we both feel really excited about having you come join the district. We were really impressed during the interview process with you about what you would bring. And so I know we had to steal you away from Killingly, but I think this is a better fit for you. So
I certainly agree. I believe the universe provides, and I think the stars do align, and we are exactly where we're supposed to be, and I am supposed to be here. So thank you very much, Board of Education, Dr. Youngberg, and new team.
anybody else on the board? Paula?
I was just going to say how lucky we were to steal him away from Killingly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say something real quick. I think you have to go by your feeling when you meet someone. And when I met you, I felt comfortable with you right away, and I felt respected. And that's really important. So thank you and welcome. You'll be a good fit here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. You can have a seat if you want.
Thank you, sir.
Encouragement from the gallery. That's very nice. I think he needed that. Thank you. Is there anything on the survey committee under the discussion area that we didn't cover previously before we move on? Mary?
Yeah, I would just like to say that we move ahead very expeditiously with the safety and the staff, points that they have made. I don't think we do have to spend actually a lot of time because there's just some very concerning things that come out, and we want students to be safe and to have an excellent education here.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody else? Okay, so we're on to action items. And the first action item, so you won't be on the edge of your seat, is appointment of Erin Coleman as Director of Pupil Services. And so I know there's somebody over here anxious to make the motion. Ilda, you want to make the motion? No, you have to make a motion to appoint him.
I make a motion, we appoint Mr. Coleman as our pupil services, a director of our pupil services.
Motion's made by Ilda. Do I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Brendan. Any other conversation or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the taking action on this appointment indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. And welcome to Windham Public Schools. Thank you. We just have a few other action items this evening. Their acceptance of grants. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the federal Title III grants.
So moved.
Motion by Brendan.
Second.
Second by Alicia. Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the Title III grants? Unanimous, thank you. The next thing is acceptance of federal Title IV grant. Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ilda. Do I get a second?
Second.
Second by Brendan. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's unanimous. Thank you. And the last action item is acceptance of state bilingual grants. Anybody want to make that motion?
So moved and much needed.
Moved by Ilda. Do I get a second?
Second.
Oh, I thought Alicia might second that one. Okay. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? It's unanimous. So we've accepted these grants, and that's a good thing. Do you have something you'd like to say?
I have something that I just need to tell the board, because in the back of your packet, you have a copy of this, of Article 7 of my contract, and the reason why you have that is there's a clause in the contract that says, to open up my evaluation process, I'm supposed to give you the clause of the contract by February 1st, and today is February 1st. So I'm done it, it's in your file, I just needed you to know that.
Thank you very much for obeying the process. Thank you. Is there anybody who'd like to speak during public comment at the end of the meeting? Anybody online or in person who wants to say anything? Okay, seeing and hearing none,
I just want to acknowledge all the work that went into the survey. You guys did an awesome job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move, we move.
Thank you, Brendan. Meeting adjourned at 7:58.
Thank you, everyone.